Hi there, Shedsters. Thank you for joining me yet again in the Holy Shed, the tiniest parish church in Christendom, right here at the bottom of our garden. You're very welcome. And lots of congratulations to all of you Gooners, that's Arsenal supporters for the uninitiated, for winning the FA Cup for an incredible 14th time. Respect, guys. And you know what? Friday just gone, marked the second anniversary of our departure from Goonerland, the parish of St Luke's in Holloway, North London, where we lived and served for 19 years. Now, leaving St Luke's was probably one of the most painful, most difficult things in my life. As you may know, I left because the rules of the Church of England declared me to be dilapidated, knackered, too old to continue. Well, I had no intention of retiring then, and I still don't. So I departed St Luke's with sorrow, with bereavement, with anger bordering on rage, at what felt to me like an absurdity. And incidentally, I still think mandatory retirement is a completely absurd thing. However, I told the folk at St Luke's on the last Sunday there that I would be their vicar at large. And you know what? I'm really enjoying being that. Time moves on, I've moved on, and I'm now able to see the church letting me go as liberation, a release. And look, I've got this new parish church to operate from. So here is to those 19 glorious years at St Luke's, and here's to the Holy Shed and all who cram into her. So just pull up a plant pot and sit yourself down. And after months of lockdown, it was an honour to be released a bit more this week and return to St Luke's to baptise a little angel of a thing called Kaya. There were just 6 of us present, me, mum and dad and 3 children, including of course the gorgeous Kaya, who never even murmured when I scooped water on her beautiful little head. And of course there were 4 godparents too, present on Zoom, as you do these days, from South London and from sunny Trinidad. Marvellous. And then on Tuesday, to be quite different, I blessed the grave of Adam, known as Spud. Here he is with his little 7-year-old son Harry. And Tuesday, when I did this, would have been Spud's 29th birthday. He was one of the youngest victims of COVID-19. And as I say, it was a great honour to help his immediate circle of family and friends to do what they couldn't back in those dark days of March. There was a strange and painful irony, really, in helping one set of parents to welcome their lovely little child into the world and to assist some others in saying goodbye to their beloved son. These are difficult times, guys, when a lot of people need a little bit of help and support at least. And I reckon that we can all give this in some way. A phone call, an email or letter, a small act of kindness or service, whatever. So here's the question we start out with today. Who needs something from you right now? And I invite you to take a moment to think about that. If you've got a candle with you, then I would ask you to get that and light it now. And let's light a candle to think about all those people who need something from us. And let's light it as an act of commitment to leave this time and go and do whatever it is we can to help. Needless to say, I light mine for Spud, for his family and friends, and also for little Kaya, for a life that's just begun and knows so little about what's going on in our world right now. Now then, thank you, Brian in Lancashire, for raising something that I've often been asked. Do you ever get called a heretic? He says. And he then rather delightfully went on to say, maybe you are a heretic, but I love what you say anyway. Well, Brian, thank you for the vote of confidence. And the short answer is yes, I have absolutely been called a heretic. During one broadcast on a certain Christian radio station where I was being interviewed, a lady called in. I always dreaded those phone calls. And she told me, you're a heretic and you'll regret it for all eternity, which I thought was a bit harsh, really. But anyway, the interesting thing is, that before heretic became this religious label to slap on anyone that you don't like or who holds a different position to yours, the word simply meant to choose or prefer. That's the root meaning of the word. So to be a heretic meant to choose for yourself, to prefer a different perspective. But of course, as time went on, heresy came to signify a belief, opinion, or an idea or an interpretation which deviated from the stated position of the church or the establishment to such an extent that it was considered unacceptable. So much so that the person might be castigated or excluded, maybe excommunicated, or even worse, burned at the stake or whatever. You see, for many people throughout history, having an opinion that differs from the prevailing view has been, still is at times, a pretty costly business. And yet why? That's what I want to know. Why? Surely it's a good thing for people to have questions, to think for themselves, even if most of us disagree with them, even if they're wrong. Surely it's a sign of a mature, healthy community when it can accommodate dissent, when people will fight for the right of people to hold a different view. And who knows, maybe in the end, the heretic will turn out to be right. And we'll all be pretty damned glad that they thought the way they did. Galileo comes to mind. It only took the Catholic Church 359 years to officially admit that he was right about the Earth circling the sun rather than the other way round. Now, of course, views and ideas often need to be tested. Of course they do. And that's a good thing. But not when the test amounts to, if you disagree with us, then you can't be in our club, or worse, we'll hurt you. And as I often point out, tradition and orthodoxy should never ever be treated or thought of as some fixed, unchanging set of ideas. It should really be thought of, I think, as a conversation, a dialogue, a heated debate, an all-out row perhaps, hopefully good-humoured, but a conversation that goes on and on, because there's always new things to learn. The problem is, too often, the people controlling the conversation chop out anyone who disagrees with them. So whether the issue is women's ordination or same-sex marriage or anything really, any interpretation of the Bible that dares to disagree with the status quo, then the person proposing these different things is decried for abandoning traditional Christianity. They're heretics. Well, you know what I think about that, don't you? It's rubbish. Interestingly, in the beginning of the church, heresy wasn't to do with doctrines or ideas and beliefs, things in your head. It was about relationships, in particular relationships around Christ's table. A heresy in St. Paul's letter to the Corinthians was a party loyalty that excluded or devalued or denigrated others. I hear there are divisions, heresies among you, he said. A heresy in St. Paul is sectarianism, excluding people who don't see things how we see them, which kind of turns the whole thing on its head, right? I mean, heresy isn't disagreeing, it's excluding people who disagree. When you look at Jesus in the Gospels, he never ever required his followers to believe certain right things. Not at all. He required them to behave in right ways. So to use the technical language, Jesus didn't teach orthodoxy, correct belief. He practiced orthopraxis, correct behavior. I mean, that makes a huge difference, right? And this is part of what lies behind my notion of a bad Christian, as I've explained it in my books. There are people, loads and loads and loads of them actually, who don't believe what some people think are the right things. I don't just mean in the church. I mean, they may be atheists or agnostics, people of the faiths, but who practice a lifestyle that is much more akin to the heart of Jesus than many of us who make a big deal out of being Christ's followers. See, heresy isn't about what you think, it's about what you do. And the real heresy in our world, Shedsters, is the evil people do to one another and to the planet, especially when it's done in God's name. Killing and abusing, persecuting minorities or people of difference, creating and sustaining systems of economic and social injustice, destroying the environment and our fellow creatures on earth. These are the genuine heresies, not views and beliefs that happen to depart from some prevailing church orthodoxy. Who gives a damn about what someone's doctrine is? It's how they live that we need to be interested in. Didn't Jesus say, by their fruits you shall know them, not their beliefs? And James, who's actually thought to be the brother of Jesus, in his letter says, show me your faith and I'll show you my faith with my good works. This is why I have suggested that it may be a good idea to treat the word Christian as a verb instead of a noun, as a way of being in the world, not as a badge that we wear that says that we belong to some particular religious club. And you know what? It's easy to forget that the teaching and practice of Jesus was considered itself heresy by some of the Jewish leaders of his time, for which they colluded with the Romans to have him killed. He was a black sheep. He was a loose cannon, a prodigal who wandered outside their idea of what was true or acceptable. The reality, of course, is that his crucifixion had much more to do with the threat that he posed to their corrupt leadership, the threat that is always posed to established authorities by those who stand apart from the crowd, who take a different position, who refuse simply to conform. And it's worth remembering that when I last checked anyway, conformity is not a fruit of the Spirit. And in a way, I think we all need to be heretics in this sense, people who make responsible choices about what to believe and how to live. More importantly, I think we need communities that are strong enough to hold together our differences, where common values of love and friendship and justice are more important than doctrinal conformity. If this parish of the Holy Shed has any sort of credo, I can tell you it has nothing to do with whether you believe this or that doctrine, or even whether you feel you can hold to any religious belief. Our credo is about a way of living in the world, based on what's called the golden rule that Jesus and other major faith leaders proclaim. Treat other people the way you would wish to be treated. Or as my fellow Scouser John Bishop said after reading How to Be a Bad Christian, what you're really saying, Dave, is don't be a dick. So there it is, Shedsters. The creed of the Holy Shed is don't be a dick. In practice, for us right now, the golden rule means things like support Black Lives Matter, because centuries of violence, prejudice and discrimination have to come to an end. In practice, the golden rule means support Mother Earth and her creatures in every way that you can, because climate change is a reality and it isn't going away. In practice, it means practice social distancing, wear a mask, support care homes and the NHS, because COVID-19 is a bloody horrible disease. I'm sure you get what I'm saying. Treating others the way we wish to be treated. This is orthopraxis, and it's something that's deeply practical. Now, none of this is to say that beliefs and ideas or theology are not important. Good grief, no. I mean, they've been a massive preoccupation to me for more decades than I can shake a stick at, which is why we talk about them, and we will talk about them over and over here in the shed. It's just that they're not of supreme importance. How we live is far more important than what we believe. To be honest, I've spent a lifetime wandering from different people's notion of the straight and narrow. I could write a book about it, will do one day. But as I like to say, not all who wander are lost. I confess my confession now, I'm attracted to theological sidetracks. I like to deviate from the straight and narrow, to burrow and explore. If something is declared to be off limits, well, I'm immediately impelled to take a closer look. And I just call that God-given curiosity, not heresy. So yes, beliefs or deep inner commitments that shape our lives are very, very important. And we need to discover what are the things that we are committed to that give shape and substance to our lives as well as our faith. We need to discover what we can believe deep down instead of being pressured into going along with some particular crowd that we're a part of. Authenticity, that's the thing. Authenticity is a very basic spiritual quality, which is why in Black Sheep and Prodigals, when I wrote that, I wanted to set out to find a faith and to express a faith that I could believe in, to write a credo that I could be committed to, shaped, yes, hugely by Christian tradition, but also owned in the depth of my being. Now, for Christians, including me, the Bible plays an important part in this process, which is why I'd like to look more carefully at that too in the days that lie ahead here in the shed. Is the Bible true, and what does that even mean? How can we make any sense of it in today's world? And do we need to bother? These and other questions will be raised in the days that lie ahead. I mean, I've got lots of other questions that you've sent in that I'd love to chew over. Are angels something real? That's a great one. Eschatology. I love these ologies. I was going to say, I love them. Where do we see the world headed? And what about death and after death? Christianity and other faiths, that's a really important one in today's world. What does Christian mission mean now? Somebody asked me this, said, if we're not now focused on going out and trying to get people saved, converted, what are we trying to do in the world? So in summary for today, things we've been talking about today, what I would like to say finally, dear friends, is be brave. Be brave. Don't let other people determine what questions you may or may not explore. Don't feel that you have to have everything nailed down. Hold your ideas and beliefs lightly. Be prepared to back up and admit that you took a wrong turn. Be open. Remain skeptical. Always be ready to learn new things. Live in faith, not fear that you might get things wrong. Trust the light within. Okay, so before we finish, before we drink a toast to all the goodness and greatness of life, we're going to just say some prayers together. So you can join in with me on these prayers, or you can just let me say them. It's up to you. Loving God, we give you thanks for the gifts that tumble into and saturate our lives, for family and friends and strangers who enrich us, for the sunrise that energizes the day, and darkness that brings quiet at day's end. And so we toast the glorious beauty of life today, mindful of the Spirit of Jesus at work in our lives, in the ordinary and the everyday, in our desire to love as generously as he loved. And as we drink, we proclaim his death and resurrection, reenacted in our world 1,000,000 times each day, in magnificent and routine demonstrations of divine love. Now come, life-giving Spirit of God, breathe into us, renew our minds, refresh our lives, and may no part of us or of the world be lost to your transforming love. Okay, so grab something to have a drink with, whatever you've got handy. It may be wine, it may be a cup of tea, it may be some orange juice, or it may be a little drop of Dura. Whatever it is, I invite you to raise your glass to all the goodness of life, despite all the horribleness that's going on. You know, this pandemic, it still freaks me out, to be honest. I've been saying this week to Pat, it just does my head in. But then also, I look around and see there's so much to be grateful for, so much goodness that is going on in the world, so much beauty. And so today I invite you to raise a glass and say with me, L'chaim, to life. Amen. And join me in this rewriting of the Serenity Prayer for our time. God, grant me the serenity to face life with hope instead of fear. Courage to embrace each challenge as an opportunity to grow, and wisdom to draw on the support of others instead of relying simply on my own strength. Now, you may or may not know that I am a trustee of the lovely Greenbelt Festival, which incidentally will still be going on as a virtual festival over the bank holiday weekend at the end of August, and I encourage you to join in. There's a lineup of wonderful things happening on Saturday and Sunday. And at a recent trustees meeting, the lovely Chinny MacDonald gave us a short meditation in which she showed us this incredible picture by the artist Hale Woodruff, which depicts a lynched African American lying dead, left at the foot of a church. Very evocative. As Chinny said, the innocent victim murdered and hanging from a tree is the clearest symbol we have of Jesus, a re-crucified Christ in the image of a brutalized black body. A marvellous detail to the picture, which you can't entirely see, but it's that where the lynch rope meets the ground, flowers are growing. What a powerful statement. Chinny said that there's beauty to be found in the midst of pain. Wow. And she quoted the black liberation theologian James Cone as saying, "The beauty in black existence is as real as the brutality. The beauty in black existence is as real as the brutality. And the beauty prevents the brutality from having the final word." That's amazing. The beauty prevents the brutality from having the final word. There's a thought to take away from the shed today. I believe that is true. I hold on to it for the Black Lives Matter movement, but it's also true of so many situations in our world right now. It may be true in your own personal experience, something to hold on to. The beauty prevents brutality from having the final word. So my last word is, of course, a bird of the day, and look what it is. It's a lovely collared dove, and this sort of dovetails, see what I did there, into what I've just been saying, because we've been talking about a different kind of peace and beauty that overcomes evil and brutality, and the dove is such a symbol of peace in our world. And collared doves are so gorgeous. This one was just sitting outside the shed earlier, cooing in that beautiful way that it does, and it just made me think about this peace and beauty that I want to be an agent of in our world. But look at this. This was just a couple of years ago. Outside the shed, there's a little kind of veranda, which may be a posh way of putting it, but there's a little veranda, and there's some shelves on there where I put all kinds of things, including the electric wire for a little lawnmower. And I was just about to grab the wire, and there I noticed this gorgeous little thing sitting there, having created its rough and ready nest intertwined with the electric flex. So I'm afraid the grass had to grow quite a lot longer, because how could I disturb this little beautiful parent on its eggs? And it's just such a lovely, lovely thing, isn't it? So there's an image to take with you. And finally, I have this blessing. Well, it's a poem actually by one of my favourite poets, Denise Levertov, but I give it to you today as a blessing. As swimmers dare to lie face to the sky and water bears them, as hawks rest upon air and air sustains them, so would I learn to attain free fall and float into Creator Spirit's deep embrace, knowing no effort earns that all-surrounding grace. Beautiful. So there it is, friends, the blessing of God, the eternal goodwill of God, the shalom and salam of God be among us and between us always, and the blessing of God, Creator, Liberator and Sustainer, be with us and remain with us always. Amen. So that's it for another week here, guys. I hope that you have a lovely week. Stay safe, go well. If you think I'm not talking about the right things here in the shed, tell me what you'd like me to talk about. I'm very, very democratic and open. So send me questions, send me thoughts, and I'm very happy to pick up on those and talk about them. But that's it for today. Have a good one. God bless you all. Bye.